And away we go.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, I'm gonna do? I'm gonna apply for a job as a consultant to the Pope.
Boy, be the end of the world now.
No. The Catholic Church got a lot more money than that place old Biden was messing around with.
Well, Biden, did you know they found in one of Hunter's emails that the whole family, is connected, got some income through the Biden crime family,
Right.
but they all have to give the old man half.
That's what?
You have to give the old man half. That's what he said.
Right. Well, being the head of the family, I guess he ought to be entitled to that.
Yeah, it's just like
Like Casa Nostra and the mafia.
that's just exactly the reason they hate Trump up there in Washington. It's bad because they all got them deals are going, and he's come in and messed things up.
Said that right, and what to do about it.
They talk about Trump and his business dealings, but everything he's got. I mean, he had a good start. I ain't saying he started off broke, and he had good. The pump was primed well, and he had a lot of advantages growing up. But whatever he's got, he's done on his own. Whether he's worth $3 or $30 billion, he's done it himself, and that ain't like Joe Biden been there almost a half of
47 years.
A half a century, and what's he ever done? Reckon he ever worked at anything besides that?
I don't think he even worked at that.
Well, he did too.
He
just wasn't a clock punching job.
Right. Well, but he worked more after hours than he did during the hours. So that's the difference between Trump and Biden.
Hey.
What really gets me, I know they
Hello. Turn that around.
Okay. What was
My
your-
chair's got wheels on it. It run off and left me.
Okay, all right. Biden and them boys, they were just making it more in their back pocket than they were in their front pocket. And that boy of his really just let the cat out of the cage, the fish out of the kettle, because
He keeps leaving things laying around. He left his crack pipe in a rental car and left his computer in the shop. Never did go back and get it. He ain't the swiftest young'un that out there nowhere.
well, what he did, he wasn't anything but the front man for Joe Biden. That's all he was for his own daddy.
Yeah, and Joe's brother and his brother's wife, they all into that.
Yeah, well, they got one check from the wife of the ex-mayor.
You got me tangled up in your feet down there. Thank you.
I wondered why you were sinking in your chair.
Well,
But,
ain't much better, but
they got one check from the former mayor of Moscow for $3.5 million. Now, what in the world did they do to deserve that?
no. We need to look into some of this here Russian collusion, seems to me like.
Well, yeah, but it's going the wrong way now. I know this expose somewhat of Hunter Biden was timed, somewhat to come out right before the election. But that was no excuse for Twitter and Facebook and them to censor all that material that was coming out on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. they censored it and refused to print a lot of it. And that was a national newspaper that published these items. It was not some sleazy guy.
Well, here's the thing. National Enquirer is the one got the goods on Bill Clinton back in the old days.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, the Facebook and all those people, they have got immunity from being sued because they say they're not responsible for the material.
Right.
They just provide a place, a bulletin board to hang it on.
Right.
But they want to censor, so it seems to me like they need to lose their. And I'm all for them being unsuable, but I'm also thinking if they're going to censor stuff, if they're going to decide what goes on there, they need to take responsibility for it. Now, this year newspaper that you're talking about, the New York Post, is 200 years old, over 200 years old, so they're not a fly-by-night outfit, and they can also be sued.
Right.
I mean, they don't have that
Immunity.
protection. They can be sued if this story is not true.
Well, they posted and sent all that stuff that was unverifiable on Trump, but here they had something that's presented by a reputable entity, the New York Post, and I've never heard of a news organization censoring a news organization.
Well, you ain't been around much in the last 4 years, is all I can say.
Why? Anything can happen then. I was glad to see old Dershowitz sue CNN for $300 million. Said he didn't need the money, he just wanted to establish a principle and make them be accountable for what they did.
Well, I was glad to see that there. What was that guy's name, that kid that they...
The one where that guy stood and beat the
Yeah,
drum.
that fake Indian was...
Yeah, I beat their drums, and how would you like to have something like that right in your face? I beat the drum.
Well, he got a undisclosed settlement, and apparently it was enough to pave the drive or something.
Right.
I don't know.
I understand it was something over $300 million.
We just don't have any honest news reporting anymore, if we ever did.
Why?
I don't know. It's a crooked business all the way around. Let me ask you something.
Okay.
Can you be jailed for desecrating the flag?
I don't know that there's a national law for doing that.
What about local?
It could be.
Well, the reason I ask you, I thought that it had been decided years ago in the Supreme Court that they couldn't, that it was considered freedom of speech. Now, I'm not for dishonoring the flag. Not, it's just a piece of cloth, but it represents some people that done some pretty, made some pretty big sacrifices. Some of them lost their lives. I mean, plenty of them did.
Right.
But this year, here's a guy. This year is on the WLAF website. And it says this guy was 31-year-old Derek Tyler Stanford was allegedly involved in an argument with a neighbor during a cookout at an apartment complex on the evening of July 18th. The report said one neighbor told Stanford to go back inside his apartment and cool off. Stanford came out of his apartment with an American flag and began allegedly spitting on the flag, blowing his nose on it, and then setting it on fire. One witness showed the investigating officer, we only have video and all that, but they jailed this guy. And he got out on a $10,000 bond. And I didn't.
It's a reasonable amount, I guess.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Nobody was injured, you know.
I didn't know that they could jail you for that in the first place. But you can look on the arrest records today. They had people down there, all sorts of crimes, and there wasn't none of them over $2,000.
Right.
And that was some pretty serious stuff. Most of it was $500, and they nailed him for $10,000. That cost him $1,000, didn't it?
At least.
If he got a bail bondsman, it cost him 10%, ain't it?
Right.
Well, anyway, I wondered about that. I didn't know they could do that.
Well, I'm not sure that they will be able to persevere with those charges. I'm just not sure of that. It may be thrown out.
They've had 6 deaths from the Kung flu here.
Well, where Elizabeth was in the hospital, she was over at Fort Sanders. They had 34 people in there with the virus, with 34 patients. And I'm thankful she did not have it, you know. She had just old common pneumonia.
Well, that ain't good.
No, she has abused her lungs by smoking for a number of years.
Yeah.
And I made her promise me before I picked her up today that she would not torture them lungs anymore.
You don't believe her, do you?
Well, I don't know. Would she ever quit smoking till they closed the lid on her casket or not? But did you hear about, talking about caskets, did you hear about the time this old fella died up in West Virginia? And you've been to West Virginia.
You still? Yeah. Okay. I was trying to get my earphones to work,
Yeah.
but they kept cut back in.
Okay. That fella passed away up in West Virginia, and lung problems, what I was getting around to. And so it's back in the olden days, so they put him in his casket and loaded him up in a buckboard in a small wagon, and with a couple of horses hooked to it, and they head up the hill to the graveyard. Now, you know, West Virginia, every day's either
I know about West Virginia. It's either up there, down there, or over there. One.
down there in the flats, or you up on the hillside or on the other. Some of the places, you know, the sun don't come up to about 12 o'clock.
They ain't no out there in West Virginia. It's up, down, or over.
Right. So they head up the hill in the buckboard with a casket in the back, and the mourners and all were following back in the olden days. And they get up there to the gates of the cemetery. So they open up the gates of the cemetery, and it had been raining a little bit. So when he clucked to the horses to take off, one of them kind of stumbled, and they jerked the buckboard, and the casket slid out the back of the buckboard. Well, it hit that.
This didn't happen to you one time, did it?
No, this a buddy of mine got come out of that ambulance that time.
Yeah,
But-
that's it.
But they said the casket hit that slick West Virginia, half coal dust and half dirt and half mud, hit it and gained speed going down the hill. Said it plowed right through the group of mourners. They just separated it. Said it went on down the hill. Said it bottomed out there on Main Street, scooted across Main Street, hopped the little old sidewalk they had there, and slammed through the doors of a pharmacy. Well, the old druggist, he'd run that drugstore probably for 75 years, and he was about deaf and about half blind anyhow. But when the casket slid into the pharmacy counter, he turned around and looked, and the casket popped open, and the corpse stood up, sat up.
Yeah.
And he looked at the pharmacist. He says, have you got anything that would stop this coughing?
Hello, I don't know whether I believe that or not, Bob.
Well, could
Who was the guy that slid out of the ambulance? Can you tell me you had to hip load yourself back in there or something?
Von Cannon was his name. And so helped me, he owned the Honda dealership in Ashburn, North Carolina. Pretty good sized dealership. And he lost it in a poker game. He lost the whole dealership. Well, Franklin was riding his motorcycle, and he had a magnificent motorcycle. It was not chrome plated. Hell, that thing was gold plated all over. And he wrecked it, and then the funeral homes were the ones that provided the ambulance service.
Seemed like a conflict of interest, didn't it?
So they picked Franklin up and strapped him in the back of the ambulance. Well, if you know anything about Highway 64 coming from the east into Ashburn, North Carolina, there's a hill that goes straight up. They've straightened it out some now. Straight out, there's a creek down there you cross. Well, they were going up the hill, and the back door come open, and Franklin come out on that gurney, strapped to it, hit that road, took off down the damn hill, and going all the way into the creek, still strapped into the gurney.
Drowned him.
Well, they backed down there about as fast as they could and got him before he drowned, you know. But you ought to hear Franklin tell about it. Well, Franklin bless his heart, they caught him for doing something, and when they let him out of prison, he had them pick him up in a limousine, one of them stretch limousines, picked him up. But bless his heart, he died in a crack house over there, smoking crack. And so the dope got him.
Well, that's better than drowning strapped to a
I
table.
don't know to say drowning pleasant. I don't know. I've never been dead either way.
Well, it'd have been quicker. I mean, it'd have been earlier. I don't know if it'd been quicker, but it'd have been earlier. He'd have been dead before he ever got around to cracking himself open.
Right.
Well, you know, I used to have 2 funeral homes in this town that had ambulances, and they'd get out and race. There'd be a rumor of a wreck somewhere, and they'd get out and race to it, try to get them one.
Right. Well, where I lived, out like about 8 miles from Greensboro, and it's a very good little ways if you had a wreck on to the east of where I lived. So I had a good buddy of mine, a good buddy of my brother's. He was older than me, whose family had a little money, had enough that
That's the way my family was. I always had very little money.
he crashed an airplane in my sister's pasture over there one time, and then he had a brand new Indian motorcycle, one of the biggest ones they made. And I got out there playing on it one day. It didn't have a scratch on it till I knocked it over. Well, Junior, his name was Junior Fryer. Junior opened him up his own ambulance service there because it, like I say, it was 8 miles to Mechanicsville, then about 8 miles to his house, then it was about 20 miles to Burlington or any other town. So he opened up his own ambulance service and did pretty good with it there, you know.
He's centrally located.
You're right, yeah. They say it's location,
Yeah.
you know. So I guess that's true.
Well, that's what
Right.
that's what the guy told the graduate.
Yeah, location.
Yeah, and the future's in nylon. Nothing to ever replace denim, though.
Hard to say. You know, the old gal that played in that movie was married to one of my childhood heroes at one time.
Who?
Oh, Howard Hughes.
What?
Howard Hughes.
Yeah, but what did he have? Who was married to him?
The one that played the movie The Graduate.
Dustin Hoffman?
No, the woman. The one that, what was her name?
I didn't know that. You're talking about, what was her name? We ended up married to Mel Brooks. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, but yeah, she was married to Howard Hughes at one time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Sure she was. Look it up. I can't
Let me dig it up here. We'll
Okay.
see.
And you know, I used to sit at the basketball games, and Ava Gardner, who was married to Frank Sinatra and also the little guy, she sat right behind me, and I had a lot of interesting conversations with Ava Gardner, because she was raised on a tobacco farm down at Four Oaks, North Carolina, and so we had a great deal in common when we were talking about things like that. So, what was her name? She also played in Thornburgs.
Well, here's Gene
And
Peters and Terry Moore and Ella Botts Rice. There wasn't none of them in The Graduate.
That he was married to.
Yeah, Hughes.
I don't, what was her name?
Okay, The Graduate. Let's see who's in that.
She was a good-looking gal. Her name was Miss Robertson.
Yeah, Mrs. Robertson.
Yeah.
Let's see. Cast. There's Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft.
That's who I was talking about. Yeah.
Well, I figured it was. She was married to Mel Brooks.
Right,
And Catherine Ross, she's married to Sam Elliott
right.
now. Been married 5 or 6 times, I think. She was married to a guy named Martin May from 53 to 57, and Mel Brooks from 1964 to 2005. She died in 2005, so she's married to him for 41 years. She's married to him when she made that movie.
Right. I thought she was married to Howard Hughes at one time. Maybe I was wrong. Somebody, one of them actresses was. I can't remember which one it was. But Howard Hughes was somewhat of a
philanderer.
He was a person that when you were a young boy, you always was wondering what Howard Hughes was going to do next. You know, he built the Spruce Goose.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of things. He was kind of flamboyant, you know.
And he flew the Spruce Goose one time just to show people that it'd fly.
What about 200 or 300 feet?
Yeah, they're over the water, San Francisco Bay or somewhere.
Right, yeah. And it's still out there in a hangar. And I don't know whether Hughes Net has anything to do with the old Hughes Tool Company that Howard Hughes inherited.
You know, we had Hughes too. What pumped money into this thing was a drill bit.
Right.
And that's what he kept falling back on to get his money. Noah Dietrich was the guy managing the company, and he kept Hughes supplied money. And Hughes, had a movie production company and an aircraft company, and they had the Global Explorer. He was working for CIA out there, supposedly taking soil samples or something out in the ocean. He's really bringing up a Russian submarine or airplane. Which was it?
Right. Well,
Submarine, I guess.
Howard Hughes, when I was a young boy, was somewhat a flamboyant person that we always wondered what he was doing, you know.
Yep.
and took a great deal of pride and enjoyment from his accomplishments. And
They took him up, had him testifying in Congress. What was they on to him about then?
was that old boy that was
No, it
hunting
wasn't.
them communists?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he had something else.
I don't remember what he.
Let's see if I can find out. Let's see.
But Howard always drove fancy automobiles, and he drove Duesenbergs and that sort of thing.
Wrecked airplanes.
Right.
Oh, he had a world record for flying around the world. You know that?
Yeah, I did. And I tell you, you know, I was listening to the vice presidential candidate Harris talking about the closing of churches was like some of the sacrifices that were made during World War II. Well, you know, I was there during World War II, and you know, as far as sacrificing being made, we did not look at it as sacrificing. We looked on it as contributing to the United States effort to whip the Germans and the Japanese. And, you know, of all the sacrifices or things that we contributed, we never missed going to church on Sunday. That was not one of the sacrifices we were called on to make. And there's been a lot of information out now about how dangerous it is if you shut everything down. And so I think a lot of the ways that Trump has felt about handling this virus is proven to be more correct than what this other side said do. So did you find anything on Howard Hughes' record?
No, I don't remember what the hearings was
But I'll
about.
tell you, some of my heroes back during the Second World War, one of them was for Joe Louis, the fighter. You know, Joe Louis, I listened to him when he about knocked Max Mellon's head off. And he's the one that told Max Mellon, says, you can run, but you can't hide. And he caught him and whipped Max Mellon, who was supposed to be the pride of the German regime. And so Joe Louis was one of my heroes. And of course, we've just gone through.
Yeah, that was an embarrassment to Hitler.
Oh, yeah. It was an embarrassment to Hitler when they went over there in the Olympics. And what was the boy's name that outrun everybody?
Yeah.
It wasn't Jim.
I don't remember.
It wasn't Jim Thorpe.
No,
Uh,
Jim Thorpe was an Indian, wasn't he?
yeah, Thorpe was an Indian, yeah.
Wasn't Satchel Paige. He was a ball
He
player.
was a baseball pitcher. I forget what his name was. He went over, I believe, in the 1934 Olympics and just run everybody in the ground, which was kind of a put down for Hitler. The blonde-headed and blue-eyed race that he thought was a super race.
Yeah, the Aryans. Yeah, I don't know.
But I've seen a lot of things go on in my 80-some years, and you know, I don't like a lot of times the way Trump says things. You know, I do kind of pick up what he really means to say. He says it a different way from most people saying it, but I honestly believe that he has put his heart into this job, and I know for a fact that he has done what he said he was going to do. And that's very, very rare in politics.
Yeah, it's unusual for anybody to tell the truth about anything anymore.
Well, I know that, yeah. And you got,
I'm afraid this seat's gonna run out and under me again. I'm gonna put a Scotch rock here behind it or
well,
something.
you got to get one off your
Take-
forklifts out here, the one that you use for your forklift.
Yeah, I'll take the wheels off this sucker. Is what I'll do.
What else is going on? Tell me
I don't
about
know.
Mississippi.
Mississippi. I had a good time down there. But all good things finally end.
You had to come back.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got your little house on wheels straightened out.
Yeah.
So,
I got down there and hit some bad road and done some damage and broke a spring and knocked some bearings loose, and it let the axle move forward, and I shredded the tire. It was fun, but you know, I ordered the springs from Amazon. I got the axle and the tires and wheels from Tractor Supply, and I got some bolts over at Ace Hardware, and every one of them things fit. I couldn't believe it. Ain't never had nothing go like that.
very unusual.
And the worst thing about it was I was supposed to have about a week there more after I rounded up the parts, put it together, but they come through and told us we was going to move out of the campground on Friday. That was on Wednesday. We have to move out of the campground on Friday because they going to close everything down in preparation for the storms that might get stirred up by the hurricane.
Right.
But I got everything rounded up there on Thursday morning last week. Well, we could go today, put it all together. It worked. And I left on Friday.
Okay. All right. So you left on Friday. Were you having rain?
Yeah, it rained all night Thursday night there last week.
Right.
And then rained all day Friday.
Right.
And I think it rained all day Saturday. I don't remember for sure.
Right.
Believe it. Well, it rained off and on, I know.
Right. So you think your little trailer's ready if I want to just slip in there and hitch up to it and leave with it? It would.
Well, it's got a car hooked to it right now. Be kind of hard to hook to. You'd get it down Chattanooga and run into somebody you know.
Could do that, yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised.
Hey, you took your little camper, didn't you? It
It's
ain't,
down the house, yeah.
when you gonna fix your truck?
I don't know. Well, I got to get David here to back it in the shed there. Then it's just a matter of sheetrock and supports for the radiator, and sheet metal.
I was gonna say, the sheetrock won't last long.
Well, not in the rain. So it shouldn't take too long to fix that thing once I get it back in there.
Well, you're gonna have a radiator
More than likely I will.
and
yeah.
probably a fan. Hopefully not a water pump.
Well, no, I don't think I'm gonna have a water pump.
And if you do need a water pump, you probably cracked the block. I don't mean to stir anything up here, but
No, it never run hot. Okay, 'cause all I did, I hit that truck. We got out and looked at it. I cranked it back up and pulled it over the side of the road, and I never ran it very much with the damage done to it.
well, you're gonna have to start sleeping somewhere behind the wheel.
Yeah, that messes up a good ride, you know. To get all them 18-wheelers out of my way, I'd be all right.
Yeah, get them trucks off the road so you could go.
So I can
Go wherever you
drive
want
where
to.
I want to. Right. You know, I was going to get back to what we started talking about a while ago. Here it is, 20 days to election?
Yeah, I guess.
Is that about right? And they refused to run any of the information on Hunter Biden or Joe Biden's connections to the Ukraine, Russia, and China. And
Yeah, I know.
all these posts were from a reputable news institution, like you say, has been around for a couple of 100 years, but they had no problem running all that unverified information on Trump when he ran in
I don't
2016.
I don't have any problem with them private companies deciding what they're going to cover. I don't have any problem at all with that. But I do have a problem if they're going to have immunity.
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's true. If they can make a decision what's going to be run and what's not going to be run, then I think they have opened themselves up for a lot of liability action on their part.
Well, you know, and I know it's all crooked.
Well, so much of it is, and you're not talking about nickel dime stuff.
I know.
You talking about $1 billion. I don't know if I started counting by ones right now what I could count to $1 billion in my lifetime.
You know, Everett Dirksen said $1 million here and $1 million there, and pretty soon, I mean, that's finally it's real money.
Pretty soon you're talking about real money, and that's what them boys were after, just like the Clintons were hauling it in hand over fist in their little organization, but it kind of dried up when she didn't win the election. So,
yeah, it just went out of business, didn't it?
And they're concerned about whether Trump is going to honor the results of the 2020 election. And
I'll be back in a minute.
The Democrats haven't even accepted the results of the 2016 yet. They're still wondering. So it's just hard to say exactly what we got going on. It's going to be an interesting election. It could be like when when Richard Nixon ran against McGovern. Richard Nixon took every state in the Union. I don't believe McGovern even won his hometown state, but then he got involved in trying to ensure the fact that they did win, and that was the result of Watergate. And that was real disheartening, because old Nixon, whatever he did wrong, he did a lot of things that were good for this country. And I was just noticing when I pulled up the other day that the post office down in Jacksboro was built during the Nixon administration. So we had a pretty good man that just resigned from the presidency under pressure because of the Watergate scandal, which wasn't nothing that hadn't been going on for years there. You had all kinds of spying and snooping and breaking into one another's headquarters. So, I've seen a lot of things going on, but this is going to be a real interesting election. I don't know how much damage this recent revelations of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and their money-making deals with Ukraine, with Russia, and to me, most important, their deals that they had going and that they will have going again with China should Joe Biden get elected. So we're going to have an interesting election here in about 20 days, and I urge all of you, regardless of how you're going to vote, to get out and vote here on November the 3rd, and maybe sometime between November the 3rd and the end of January 2021, maybe we might know the results of who
Yeah.
won the election.
I had something I wanted to show you, but I can't find it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to have a mess whenever election day, when they start counting.
You know, it's funny. Texas, which is a pretty good sized state, only has 2 drop off boxes in the whole state for mail in.
I drive all night.
I flew out of Houston one time, and early in the morning they had about either 5 or 6 big tractors running side by side, disturbing the ground in the field. They were heading west, and we flew over to San Diego and had meetings and everything. I think we had lunch, and we also had the evening meal. And when we was coming back, it was still light. Those tractors were still heading west. they
You
were-
ain't telling me they just plowed one field that long, are you?
Well, yeah, field. They were still heading west in
Yeah.
the same field.
Yeah.
So field must have been 100 and some miles long.
Must have been one of them there spaghetti farms.
It must have been, but they had the chuck wagon set up out there. It looked like about 50 miles from where they started,
Yeah.
and so they stopped there for lunch, and then they kept heading west again. I guess they moved the chuck wagon on out.
Well, they had to gas up every now and then.
Yeah, it said that. Well, they had a big truck there with the fuel in it.
Uh-huh.
And diesel fuel. All of them were big diesel tractors, and they were covering probably about 8 or 10 foot swath.
Yeah.
Each one of them was. So, they're taking like maybe 60 to 70 feet wide going out across there.
Well, how long? I mean, they drive out there one day and drive back the next. Does that do the field, you think?
I don't know. The field was wide. They probably had to go all the way out there, all the way back, all the way out there again, and all the way back again. So,
What's they raising?
huh?
What's they raising?
I think they probably were going to be raising soybeans in that field.
That's a lot of soybeans.
Huh?
That's a lot of soybeans.
Yeah, something you can make good money at right now is raising cotton.
Cotton.
Yeah, you can make money at cotton if it'll bring about 65 cents a pound. Well, some kind of bringing just right under $1 a pound now. And all these fields we got laying out around here, they're excellent for soybeans. Cotton. I believe cotton's a legume anyhow, and that it provides a certain amount of nitrogen back into the soil when you plant it. And I always felt like a man could start off doing 1,000 acres a year, and that was big enough where he could afford a small cotton picker, and or a big cotton picker, or just a cotton picker, whatever.
Cotton picking, cotton picker.
Cotton picking, cotton picker. And I just believe a man could make money, and I think he could get the money from the Department of Agriculture probably to buy all of his equipment, pay all the leases if any of them had to be
Maybe
paid.
you ought to reconsider the gold mine and go into the cotton farming
I
business.
might ought to go into cotton farm, and you could. I don't know how many tractors you'd want to buy, but you could either plow them fields, or you could go in there and bush hog them, and you could spray it, kill all the foliage of the cotton you were planting. And I believe a man probably can make. What was that guy down there in the bill under the Jimmy Carter? What was that guy's name down there that he had called in that embezzlement of all that?
Yeah.
He was the Secretary of Agriculture, and they called him
I know who you're talking about. Can't remember his name.
I'll think of it. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name.
He ain't the one that had all them there. Howard Estes?
Huh?
Howard Estes?
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah, sure was. And,
See how smart I am?
huh?
See how smart I am?
Yeah, okay.
You didn't think I'd remember that, did you?
Put you on just.
Who was that other one that they got? He was.
He was the banker that he brought up from Atlanta.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they had a guy down there. I don't remember what they had him on, but he's back in the 60s. They got him on some scam he was running. But Jimmy Carter had.
He brought his own personal banker
Yep.
up there to be Secretary of
Treasurer.
Commerce.
What was his name?
I don't know, but
I remember Hamilton Jordan. And
I passed the street with this guy's name on it, the one we're trying to think coming out of Atlanta. There's a street down there named after him. I can't remember. I can see his face, but I don't remember his name.
well, I guess they've probably got a fender bender down the road because they've called the fire department from up here.
Okay. Probably need to put out a radiator fire.
May have. You know, pretty good indication that it's down here. If the fire truck come uptown,
yeah,
they don't
yeah.
want to disturb us down here next door.
Have to have a accident up there. The fire trucks come from down here.
Yeah, what's that all about?
Well,
They get more.
when they go in to prevent their need for money the next month, next year, in the budget, they say, see how many miles we drove and how much property we saved. You know, they go up there and there ain't nothing. The car has a fender bender, and they'll write down that, you know, as a result of their action, they save $15,000. You know.
I have seen more wrecks because of that crowd they bring in for them little fender benders. They feed on themselves. They'll have a little fender bender and they'll have 5 police cars and an ambulance and 2 or 3 fire trucks. And while they're doing all that, people be running over each other and everything trying to get stopped. Crazy.
No, I was working up in Reedsville, North Carolina, and that's not too far from Virginia. And I came through this back way and I T-boned into a road like this.
I thought you'd hit another truck.
No. And there was, I don't know how many sheriff's cars and fire trucks and emergency personnel trucks. And what happened, they were building an outfall for the sewer, and some fella had fell off a ladder down in that thing they were building, and they were sitting there trying to figure how to get him out, because he was hurt, you know, how to get him out. And there was just traffic everywhere, and so help me, a pregnant woman got out of her truck, and she's up there, the one directing traffic, and all these other guys that were leaning over the damn bridge to see what was going on. And so help me, there was a pregnant woman out there trying to help people get through with their cars. Well, I was telling this story just like I am to you, sitting next to a guy at a little old Toddle house or coffee shop or something, and come to find out, he says, I'm ashamed to tell you, but says, I'm the one that was directing that. I said, well, I'll be honest with you, you wasn't doing much directing. I said, if you hadn't had that pregnant woman, I said, you'd had all kind of trouble out there, and he admitted it too.
You know, I was down there, whenever I shredded my tar and I was stuck there beside the road,
Right.
and I had to go to, I needed to come along, but the only thing I could think of would be heavy ratchet strap, because I had to pull that axle back so the wheel wouldn't rub when I put the spare back on it.
Right.
And I pulled over there off of the road down there on the trace over in the grass, and I had to go down 30 miles down to Kosciuszko, birthplace of Mid Rivers and Oprah Winfrey. Anyway.
You know, if she'd been white, she might would have amounted to something.
Yeah, she had all that white privilege going for her. Yeah. But I was going, had to drive 30 miles down there and back. That's 60 miles. And when I got back, it was dark. And I was over there and pulled off of the road I got hooked back up. And then I jacked the thing up and was working on it. And here come this blue light up through there. And he pulled up there and turned around and come in. And then there was another and come the other way, and he done the same thing. And then there's a pickup truck from the fire department come. And, I'm watching the show. Right. And he said, well, they called in that I was wrecked and over an embankment and everything down there. I said, no, I'm just trying my best to get out of the road. And so he helped me a lot, and we got it fixed. And I had to go 4 more miles to get in the campground down there, and I just had about that much, literally that much clearance between my tire and the,
right.
Yeah, and I drove, it took me about 30 minutes to drive that 4 miles. I just eased down through there. I didn't want to shake it, know, because I was running out of spurs. I just had one, and it was a 12, and the others was 13, big difference in the size.
Right.
So he's riding sideways.
Probably was good. It probably was better than it was a 12 rather than being a 14.
Yeah, it would have rubbed if it'd been the regular size. Right. You can see they're laying outside there. One of them's cut all to pieces. It's junk. Right. The other one's marked pretty good. It's new tires. Right. They had, I'm going to say 1,000 miles on them where I put them on there and was trying it out. And it seemed to be okay. Right. It wasn't.
Right. That's about like me coming out of Chattanooga on a separate trip, and it must have been a pothole big as a wash tub.
Yeah.
And I hit that thing. I was driving that little green Dodge truck and had a tandem trailer behind me, and I hit that damn bump, and I looked over there, and there my trailer was running up beside me.
Yeah.
It come up beside me, and it went across the median, went across the next 2 lanes of I-75, slid along the road there, and come settled itself down in a white, nice little place over there where I could back up and get to it. The only problem was when it was sliding along the road there,
wore the tongue out.
It set on fire. So me and the truck driver got out and was putting the fire out, and finally got it out, and I pulled down there getting ready to hook to my trailer, and here comes the fire department.
Yeah.
I said, well, we done got it out now. I said, appreciate you coming out. And then I got hooked up, and as soon as I got hooked up, here comes the highway patrol. This was after everything was over. So in some ways, law protection and all this stuff we pay for on the highways, like all these fire trucks running up and down the road here in La Follette, putting out radiator fires. It just does not justify it. I'll be honest with you. We're not going to deal too much in local stuff, but I believe this town could get by with cutting the fire department's budget in half.
And there you are, going to defund the fire department.
No, I don't want to defund it, cut it in half. And make them take enough conservation methods to make up for that. And I believe you could certainly get by with cutting the police department's budget in half.
Well, this town had, these numbers is close but not accurate, about 9,000 people in this town back in the 50s, and they had 3 full-time policemen and 2 part-timers.
Right.
Now they've got
We only got 6,000.
They've got less people, but they've got about 30 cops,
Right.
and they have got more property. They finger annexed down through here and got this, so they could get the revenue, but there ain't much more policing to do. The people ain't in the town. I mean, they took in more property and still didn't increase the population much.
Well,
But I will admit that they didn't have all that drug problem back then because they didn't worry about it, and since it wasn't illegal, wasn't nobody doing it no way.
Right.
Anytime you pass a law against it, somebody's got to do it.
You know, if it's not illegal or fattening, it ain't no fun to do.
I know. Hell, it's just like growing your own watermelons. That ain't no count, but if you steal them when there ain't nobody around, they real good.
Yeah, I'll probably get back to watermelon business next year.
Oh, boy, you run over
Watch
somebody.
out, coming down I-75.
Yeah.
Oh, coming up I-75.
Hello. Well, Bob, I guess we've about done a show. Anything you want to throw in here before we get mad and quit?
I just hope everybody that,
I hope your chin gets better.
why,
Yeah, your chin. I know you had it tied up there.
he's down right here.
Yeah.
That's my face mask, okay. Hope everybody will get out and vote. And, of course, like I say, I'm endorsing Trump. I have no confidence at all in Joe Biden. Or the
Vote early and
Democrats.
vote often, yeah.
Huh?
Vote early and vote often.
Yeah, vote several times, you know.
We're not advocating any illegal procedures.
No.
It's a
Well,
joke.
Like I said, maybe in a month or two we'll know who won the
Yeah.
election.
Boy, it's going to be fun. Well-
We thought hanging chads were something unusual. Just wait till
Yeah,
you
we
see
had
it
hanging
this year.
chads and dimpled chads and pregnant chads. Old Chad, he was busy.
I tell you, he had it, and that was in 2000.
Yeah. Well, sayonara, folks. Tune in
Right.
again some other time.
Hasta la vista.